Today would definitely be
Sorry.
the best ways to join us or to interact with us today would be in the chat. We want to hear what you have to say. But first, let me tell you who I am. So you're wondering who this guy is standing to you. My name is Ryan Bean. I am associate faculty of language of breath, guide, and I've been used breathworks with language of breath since, well, its inception really, and was the first class of language of breath. My history with breathwork started way back in India, doing yogic pranayama, along with some other breath works that have to do with cold exposure, some other breath works that have to do with how we inhale and how we slow down our breath. I've learned lots of different types, and I can tell you that I landed at the language of breath for a reason, because we are more than just a technique. Certainly a philosophy of awareness that meets our conscious and unconscious self, which I find so important, especially in my line of work, working as a mindset coach and as a therapist. This is exactly where you should be. So I'm really happy that you're here today to breathe with us, to share some of the key points of what makes language of breath different. And we're going to kind of give you a little bit of a taste of what that awareness is, with a few surprises. So many of you received a few emails. You'll be getting maybe some merchandise from us, which is really fantastic and wonderful. I can't wait to see all that all over the social medias. Be sure to tag us when you do that. You can tag us at Language of Breath, and we will repost your beautiful pictures of your new merch. Um, I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you to my dear friend who we met in the cold waters of North Carolina and doing deliberate cold exposure. Many of you have read maybe A Practical Guide to Breathwork. Many of you have read maybe the Language of Breath book. Some of you even have a practical guide to cold exposure in your library. And of course, maybe you're a patron. And however you found us, we're glad you're here. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, Jesse Coomer.
Hey, thanks so much, Ryan. And thanks everybody for being here tonight. Tonight, we're going to be doing just basically an introduction to what makes the language of breath unique. You know, in the world of breathwork, there's so many different voices, and breathwork right now is the fastest growing health modality that there is. And anytime that happens, there's going to be a lot of different voices, a lot of different opinions. And we want you to understand what makes us different and what we believe is what makes us the next best step in the world of breathwork. So tonight we're going to I actually have, Ryan's going to be surprised. I actually have a PowerPoint presentation, which is not okay. It's not really the typical thing for me. Now, just a little bit of background about myself. I am a recovering English professor, and that might sound a bit boring. I know you probably hated your English professor. I don't know. Maybe you loved your English professor, but my field of study, while I did love literature and philosophy, and those things got me into it, but what I really started to get into was research and rhetoric, and that is the boringest part. It basically is being a nerd. It is learning how to do quality research and learning how to synthesize different pieces of research into sort of a big picture, so that it can be used and understood. And so I myself was my own first client when it comes to breath work, and I applied that same methodology to my research. And I was very fortunate. I was able to have a lot of mentors. I studied under a lot of people. I was able to meet people in the fields of neuroscience and research psychology. And over the many, many years, and I started professionally as a breathworker in 2016. And over those many, many years of training others, learning from other different masters, doing a lot of research on my own, and synthesizing the fields that are connected to breathwork, physiology, psychology, neuroscience, all these things together, we have now what we know as the language of breath. So I'm going to go over kind of what is the language of breath, what all this is. We're going to have some experiential things, because there's some things that I'm going to throw at you tonight that might sound a bit far-fetched. I want to just reassure you that everything that I'm going to talk to you about tonight is grounded in decades of research. But the thing is, when it comes to the research that we use in language of breath, it's more than just breathwork research. There's over 100 years of breathwork research. And I know people may be surprised at that, but it was in the 1800s whenever we just first started learning about how breathing interfaces with our physiology. And so we've had a lot of research specifically on breathing and the functional aspects of breathing, all those things. But what we've done is we've been able to also see that there are other aspects that we're working with, and that is what the language of breath is all about. To start off, I do want to say, I'm just going to throw this out there, that one of the things that's very important to understand, and we're going to get into it today, is that you have a brain. Okay. Now don't argue with me. No, but so our brains are predictive and reactive in nature, and what that means is ultimately there's a part of you. So your brain is constantly trying to predict what's about to happen, so that it can put you into the best possible state for what's yet to come. It's also trying to deal with whatever it is you're actually dealing with in the present, and what we see is, and what I'm going to explain is essentially how this works, how it interfaces with our regular life, and how we can work with it in with breathing and with self-awareness. So I'm going to attempt here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen. And oh my gosh, look at this PowerPoint presentation. I'm so professional today. Let's go ahead and get this started. So this is about the language of breath, and this is the same. This is the same methodology that we use with everyday people, moms, dads, teachers, nurses. I mean, you name it. We work with the full gamut of. If you're a human, we're working with you. This is what we train athletes in very elite levels of athletic breathwork training. This is also, as you can see over here on the right side of your screen, I am not passed out in front of these police cadets. That is actually me as I've taught in the multiple first responder academies. This one here is actually we created a curriculum based off of the language of breath, specifically for police officers in this case, and other first responders. So what we're working with is not just something that's sort of theoretical. It's not something that I just did a bunch of research and then I wrote a bunch of books that, hey, people really like reading these books, but it's just sort of in the theories. This is stuff that we use on a regular basis, and it's the difference you're going to hear about tonight that makes it far more effective than just breathing techniques or just sitting there and doing deep sessions. We love all those things, and those are aspects of the language that is breathing. But it's important tonight. What we're going to really cover tonight is the foundation of what is happening. And so when we do that, of course, this is something that we also teach to our graduates. Now you can see Ryan is in all of these pictures. He's been with me for we've been together for a long time. Ryan's and we've been breathing a long time, and this is a English professor nerd thing. Did you know that the origin of the word conspiracy, that's Latin to breathe together? So we've been conspiring together for a while, Ryan. But basically, this is something that we teach a lot of we teach all of our instructors. Our instructors, we have a lot of people in therapy or therapists, people who are therapists, both physical therapists, talk therapists, coaches of all different kinds. And they go out and they use these same things and they have these amazing results as well. So what this is founded in is ultimately an understanding. Now, this may be something you've heard of. And for those of you guys who are just dipping your toes into breath work, thank you, first of all, for tuning in. This is something that you should be aware of. Now, if you've been doing breath work for some time, you might have heard of this. We're going to take it a little deeper tonight. So whether this is your first time to hear about it or you've heard about it before, we're going deep tonight in how this stuff works. All right. So we're going to nerd a bit, but then we're going to feel how this works too. So this is what we call the autonomic nervous system. You have this operating in you right now. It's always there. It's the autonomic nervous system is basically where we have our automatic functions. And for the purposes of our talk tonight, we're just going to talk about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic sides of your autonomic nervous system. This is essentially what governs automatic functions. And you see that now on the right side, you see the sympathetic nervous system. A lot of times we're familiar with terms like, okay, I was in the state of fight or flight. Or I was just I was frozen like a deer in the with the headlights or something like that. Well, this is when our unconscious, which we'll describe it a little bit more in depth here in a minute, there's a part of you that's saying, okay, we need to take some action because either we're in danger or we need to charge towards something that's really worthwhile and really good. Okay, so it's not always bad. A lot of times people act like this is just a bad thing. It's not always bad, but it's active. So right now, my sympathetic nervous system is active because I'm excited to share this with you, right? So I'm not scared. I'm not running away. But this is also a time whenever our whole physiology changes. And a lot of time we look at ourselves like this mind that drives around a body, sort of like this is a machine, and we're just wanting to punch in little codes and things. But no machine has the capability of transforming as much as the human organism does. Because just depending on your state, you're going to have a whole host of changes, hormonal changes, circulatory changes, energetic changes that put you in a state of, what am I going to be able to do with this, the human organism that I am? So if you see here on the sympathetic side, you see this thing, it says heightens senses. And in early days, like in the caveman days or the earliest days of human existence, this was fantastic because this is actually sort of a superhero ability that humans have, that when we're under stress or whenever we have this sympathetic dominance, our hearing improves, our vision will become more sharp. All of our senses, we become more sensitive. And this is great because that lets you see the jungle cat before it can see you. That lets you hear the jungle cat, or the bear or whatever before it can hear you. All of those things helped us in survival all throughout human history. But however, nowadays we have another word for heightens senses, and we call this anxiety. And this is something that is a part of you that's trying to help you, but it's not really doing what it once did. It's really not helping us as much as it's trying to do. There's a lot of other these functions. If you take a look down here, it will inhibit saliva flow when you're in this state. It accelerates your heartbeat. It accelerates breathing. Maybe we're going to talk about that. It will inhibit your digestion. Your blood glucose increases when you're in this action state. And of course, you need more blood glucose because you need to make more energy. And then it will inhibit your reproductive organs at that point when you're in this heightened state of energy production. Now, on the other side, we have this parasympathetic side. Sometimes we call it the rest and digest state. Sometimes we call it feed and breed. Sometimes we call this the social interaction state. But basically, this is almost exactly the opposite. It's not a complete total opposite, but it's very much the opposite in ways. For instance, it will dull your senses. So, which is great if you're trying to go to sleep, right? If you're trying to go to sleep and your senses are really heightened, and I think we've all had those nights when you just can't stop thinking about something. And I'll explain to you the deeper processes there that are happening here in a minute. But it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just sitting here and every little sound, every little, the thing that happens sets me off. Well, it's not great when that happens when you're trying to go to sleep. So it is nice to be in this parasympathetic state when you're trying to go to sleep. And then all the opposite things. So your digestion will turn on. Your heart rate slows down. Your breathing slows down. Your digestion will turn on. Your blood glucose comes down, and your reproductive organs will work at that point. Now, if you take a look at this here in the United States, we're one of the few countries, I think there's only 2 countries that allow us to advertise prescription drugs. And a prescription drug commercial, if you see people dancing and then it says, may cause suicidal thoughts, anal bleeding and diarrhea and all this, it's always all these side effects, but everybody's dancing. But the thing is, if you think about all these, if you're in the United States, if you're not in the United States, maybe you've seen other commercials on YouTube and things like that. But a lot of times, you see these, we have all these commercials for prescription drugs that are all about these things, these issues of anxiety, issues of digestion, issues of heart health, issues of blood glucose. And hey, as a man who's in his early 40s, I don't know how many times I need to see commercials or have emails sent to me about Viagra. But these are things that we face in the modern world, and they don't seem to be going away. Now, what if I were to tell you that this whole system is a subset of a larger system that not many people in the world of breath work to talk about, and that's because not many people really make the connection that we've made with the language of breath, and that is this: you are not this just I am this singular controller, and I've got this machine body. We look at a human organism as a relationship, as a team, and the reality is that you are most of you, I would say, is made of unconscious processes. Okay. So yeah, you remember in school when they used to say, hey, you only use like 5% of your brain, or they would also say there's more connections in your brain than there are stars in the observable universe. And then you're like, yeah, but I can't find my keys. What's going on here? Well, they weren't lying. It's just that not many people have really put it together in a way that we should have been explained early on. This should be explained to every human being. It's not, but you are a combination of conscious and unconscious processes. And these two aspects of what you are, conscious and unconscious processing, that is what makes up your worldview. That is what makes up your lived experience. And the vast majority of that is made of unconscious processes. Now, I will get to how we can interface with this with breath, but just so you know what makes us unique in the language of breath, no one else is really talking about this. And this is how we approach breath. We have to understand that this is not about controlling your emotions. This is not about controlling your physiology. It's not about control. In fact, if your goal is control, you'll never get to rest, right? You'll just always have to be in control. What actually is happening here is that the vast majority of all of these things are dictated by what the unconscious you believes about the situation. Now, earlier on, I said that you have this brain that it's both reactive and predictive. It's always trying to predict what's about to happen so that it can put you in the best overall state for that. And it's also trying to deal with what's in the present. That is all happening on an unconscious level. Yes, you are able to consciously think about tomorrow and things like that, but so much of that is happening at an unconscious level. And this unconscious you is absolutely brilliant. Like and I also want to just say this unconscious you is you, right? So a lot of times when I explain this to people, we're like, well, okay, how do I control the unconscious me? It is you, right? What we're trying to do is form a better relationship between these two parts of ourselves. And what we see when we apply the language of breath, because the language of breath is not a method, it's not a specific technique, it's not a protocol. It is learning how all of this works together, learning how to hear the voice of the unconscious you. And I know that sounds weird. Maybe it sounds a little out there. We're going to do it tonight. Okay. Well, I'm going to guide you in just a moment in an exercise where you will actually be able to observe the unconscious you sending you a signal that you will be able to observe. All right. So that's coming. But I want you to understand what this is. This unconscious part of you, it is always learning, and it learns very quickly. And sometimes we call this implicit learning. This is the kind of learning that you don't mean to do. It's just that you do. And it's always trying to put together a picture of the world. And so when I work with first responders, the world that they live in, they've been learning it's different than maybe you and I who are not first responders. I know there's at least one first responder here on the call tonight. But there's, based off of our experiences in our life, this is how we learn. We have this unconscious part of us that is always learning, and it's always trying to do that because it's trying to be as good of a predictor of the world around us as it possibly can, right? And so depending on your experiences in life, that is going to shape how you see things. It's going to shape how your emotional states are as well. And this is actually one of the things that we should have been told at a young age. It's too bad no one's told us about this, because we have known this for decades, that emotions are coming from a part of you that loves you very much. Your emotions are coming from the unconscious you, and they actually have a biological function. Emotions are not just there, like on the science fiction shows where, you go to the planet that nobody has emotions, and wouldn't it be nice to not have, but then again, I wouldn't be able to feel love or whatever, right? Well, all of our emotions they're there. They're very strong messengers from the unconscious that are there to push you towards some kind of action that the unconscious you, and again, this is you, that this unconscious part of you believes is in your best interest. Now, it might be in conflict with maybe what's actually in your best interest. It might be in conflict with actually what you really want to do with your life. But oftentimes these emotions will start to push you, and you'll feel like, I just have to do this, or I can't do this. I just can't do it because, I don't know why I can't do this thing. And I just want to say, this is something that I struggled with for so long. And if only someone would have told me about this, if only someone, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have listened, because maybe my unconscious would be like, shut up. But the thing is, how many times have I stopped from doing something I really wanted to do because I have an emotional thing, and I blame it on my emotions. And so many of our clients will come to us and say, I want to control my emotions. My friends, you cannot consciously control your emotions, because they don't come from a conscious controlling place. They come from the unconscious you. So what can we do with these things? How can I manage these emotions? At least let me manage them. Well, what we do in the language of breath is unique, and it's this beautiful thing where we form a team. So what our goal is in the language of breath is not to make it shut up. We're not trying to beat it into submission. We're not trying to control. What we're trying to do in the language of breath is make it so that you can trust yourself. What we're trying to do, our goal in the language of breath, is so that you feel safe enough to feel what you actually feel, so that you feel okay feeling what you actually feel. And so that you can start to trust this unconscious you, instead of saying, okay, I can't really trust how I feel. And at the same time, so that you're aware of these unconscious processes, knowing that they're not always right. So one of the things, if you take a look on the right side, on the low right side, it talks about, hey, this is where we get our gut feelings, our intuitions, and things like that. That's true. And that unconscious you is always putting things together. It's always trying to put together these what's going on? How do I feel? And so those gut feelings, they're coming from that unconscious part of you. And a lot of times you can trust them, but not always. And it's important to understand that. That is where that's coming from, are my emotions, my gut feelings, my stress signal. And it's also the thing that is controlling that autonomic nervous system. The unconscious you is in charge of that. So when it thinks that you're unsafe, when it believes that you need to do X, Y, Z, or this is what the actual situation is, it will make changes in how the autonomic nervous system expresses itself. Oh my gosh. I know I'm nerding a lot. I promise we're going to get into the practice, but I want you to understand what we're going to feel when we do it. Okay. Now there are breathwork techniques and sessions where we feel incredible bliss and we go very deep. We do a lot of those sessions. Tonight, we're not going to do that because I don't know who I'm in front of, and I want to make sure it's safe for everybody. Also, I want to show you that you can start to come in contact with this aspect of yourself. It's just that very few of us have ever been told this is what this is. And this is the foundation. This is what we're built on. Now, if you take a look, before we get into that though, I do want you we do want to say the conscious you is a very valid part of this conversation as well. But it's only about 5% of brain function. 95% of who you are, of what you are, is unconscious. Now, when I say unconscious, I don't mean asleep. I don't mean that you passed out. I mean that it's beyond your conscious control. But when the unconscious you decides, man, there's something we really need to figure out, it will tap on the shoulder of the conscious you, because the conscious you is the only one capable of critical examination. Okay. And this is where the trouble starts for most of it. This is where it started for me. Okay. So the unconscious is, if you take a look, it can, if on the second little dot over there, it can process enormous amounts of information almost instantaneously. When we talk about when people compare the brain to a supercomputer, they're talking about your unconscious processing. It can process basically all the information you've ever learned in your entire life seemingly instantaneously. And it's a marvel. It is still a marvel how this happens. But it's also going to make a lot of snap judgments, and it's going to take a lot of shortcuts. And often those snap judgments are negative. And when it's not sure, when it can't make that snap judgment that it can rely on, it will kick up awareness to your conscious self. You're going to start to have what we call, instead of just emotions, we start calling these things feelings. But we also start saying, man, I really need to think about this thing. So let me know if you've ever had this happen. You can put it in the chat. 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's just say 3 o'clock in the morning, you're laying in bed, something woke you up. And then for some reason, you feel the urge, you've just got to start thinking about this thing that's going to happen tomorrow. Or could be this thing that happened in the past. It's already happened, but you can't stop thinking about it. And a lot of times we say we just can't turn our brains off, can't turn off our thinking. We call it rumination, right? This is something that we share with every other human that's been alive, because every other human that's been alive has had this combination. So I see this. Okay, if you've had this happen, I know you have, because you're a human. I mean, everybody here is human, I assume, right? This is because of a disconnection in the team. Okay, so this is a very common thing, and this is just a great example before we go into the first practice we're going to get into. The unconscious you is not capable of telling time. So the unconscious you is not capable. It doesn't really understand the fact that something is happening tomorrow, or that it happened yesterday, or that it's happening now. It doesn't really understand that. Conscious thinking you is able to do that. The conscious you is able to say, well, this thing has not happened yet. It happens tomorrow. Therefore, the rational course of action is to go to sleep now so I can wake up tomorrow and actually be useful so I can solve this problem tomorrow. Unconscious you is not like that. Unconscious you says, we've got a problem. We need to figure this out. Hey, conscious thinking me, wake up. You got to do all this critical examination until you figure it out. And it won't let you stop until it feels like this thing has been solved, or unless you can speak back to it using the language of breath. And this is one of the things that we do, and we teach a lot of our clients how to do, because it's a difficult thing, and it's not easy to make it through life without having rumination, no matter who you are. And it's so funny. It can be something that's going to happen tomorrow that you're worried about, or it can be something that happened back like 5 years ago. Why did I say that stupid thing? And then I can't stop thinking about it. That's what that is. And so what we're trying to do all this time with the language of breath is we're trying to form a better team. We're trying to say, I am going to listen and be attentive to both partners, because that's what a relationship is, right? It's not I don't want to be in a relationship where it's like one is just controlling the other. A good relationship, you got good communication, and we have strengths and weaknesses, and we work with those strengths and weaknesses moving forward. So having said that, I'd like to take you into an exercise where we're going to listen to and just try to hear that voice of the unconscious you. I can see there's been a bunch of comments. I haven't been able to read them. We'll answer those here in just a minute. Any questions or comments? Thank you so much for all of those, by the way. But right now, what we're going to be doing is one of our foundational exercises. And this is not deep breathing. There is breathing involved. And please continue to breathe. All right. Do not stop. Do not stop breathing. I saw you holding your breath. No, but please continue to breathe. But what we're going to be doing is basically, I'm going to guide you through a session, and I'm going to ask you to do certain things and think about certain things. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to observe the physical sensations, the ways that the unconscious will speak to us. Okay. And this is just an exercise just to kind of dip your toes. All right. So Ryan is also, he's incredibly talented. He's got all these different talents. One of the talents is that he's a musician and he plays handpan. We're going to try to make this kind of special tonight. Can you give us a little something? All right. So what I'd like everybody to do, let's go ahead and in a seated position. See, just go ahead and close your eyes. All right. We're going to turn you down just a little bit if you don't mind, Ryan. Just a little bit. There we go. What we're going to do is, with our eyes closed, I'd like you to bring your awareness to your forehead. Just observe. Just be present. What do you feel there in your forehead? And we're just getting started. We're sharpening what's called the sense of interoception, the sense of inner awareness. Do you feel tension? Do you feel relaxation? And we're not trying to feel what we think we should feel. We're just feeling what we really do feel. Bringing our awareness down to our eyebrows. Just observing. See if you can relax your eyebrows. And observe just how much more information was there. Now that we are focusing on these places, we start to observe it. We're going to do the same thing, bringing your awareness down to your jaw. Bringing your awareness to your jaw. Observing what you really feel. We're not trying to find an anatomy chart, we're just feeling what we feel. Bringing our awareness down to our neck, the place between our neck and our throat. All that area between. Just feel what's there. What do I really feel? Difficulty bringing awareness here, that's okay. Just do your best. Just being willing to try is enough. Bringing our awareness to our shoulders, allowing that awareness to come down to the space between our upper back and our chest. Just feeling all that space there. Relaxing muscles that feel tense. Observing any sensations that you might observe. Bringing your awareness down to your abdomen and your low back and all the space between. Just feeling what's there. Again, not trying to feel what we think we should feel, just feeling what we feel. Now we're going to put our awareness on our legs, your glutes, your hamstrings, your quadriceps, your calves, your shins, all the way down to your feet. Now, focus on your feet. Just observe your feet and notice how we can move our awareness at will. Really focusing in on your feet. Can you feel your heartbeat in your feet? I promise you it's there. Can you laser focus your awareness? We're just doing this for science, people. It's okay if you can't quite get it. This takes some practice sometimes. Just do your best. Now, this whole time we've been doing this, you may have forgotten, but you've been breathing this entire time. But it's not been your conscious thinking you, it's been the unconscious you doing it for you. What we're going to do now is we're going to breathe in, pulling the awareness from our feet to our head, taking a deep breath in, all the way in, as if we're pulling the awareness from our feet all the way up to our head. Up, 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 up to full lungs, and hold. And we're going to let it go with a sound like this. Relaxing your awareness from your head down to your feet. Good job. One more time. Deep breath in, pulling the awareness from your feet to your head. Nice and slow. All the way up. Pulling that awareness all the way up to your head. And letting it come down with your exhale with this sound. All right, we're ready now to do the awareness exercise. We've just been priming our internal awareness. What I'd like you to do is I'm going to ask you to think of a few things. And when you do, I want you to observe the physical sensations that come up when you think of those things. All right, we're going to do 4 different ones. The first one, I'd like you to think of something that makes you feel angry. Just one thing, bring that to your thoughts. One thing that makes you feel angry. Now, observe the physical sensations that come up when you think of that thing. Hello, unconscious me. Stay focused, focusing on that thing that makes you feel angry and the physical sensations that come up. We are hearing, in our own way, the voice of the unconscious you. Just focus on this for just a little bit longer. Isn't that interesting? You're doing great. Focusing on that thing that makes you feel angry and the physical sensations that come up when you feel that. Just observe. That is the unconscious. It's got an opinion on that thing. All right, we're going to cleanse the palate. All right, so let's forget about whatever you were thinking about. Let's take a deep breath in, all the way in, pulling it up, 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 up. Smile at the top. We're cleansing the palate. And let it go with a sound like this. Nice job. One more time. Deep breath in, all the way in. Hold at the top with a smile. And let it go with a sound like this. Nice job. All right. We're going to think of another one. All right. Eyes closed. I'd like you to think of something that makes you feel gratitude. Now, this can be someone, this can be something. Just put something in your thoughts that makes you feel gratitude. and observe the physical sensations that come up when you do. Hello, unconscious me. Just observe it. No judgments. Just observe how there is a physical sensation and it's different from the other one. We are observing messages, an internal language. All right, we're going to cleanse the palate again. Deep breath in, all the way in. All the way up, 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 up. Smile at the top. And let it go with the sound. Relaxing it out. All right, deep breath in, all the way in. Hold. Smile at the top. And let it go with the sound. We're going to go through these next two. The next one we're going to do is, I want you to think of something that makes you feel jealousy. And before you, I never feel jealousy. Come on, you're a human being. We feel jealousy. You don't have to tell me what it is. Just put it in your mind. Sigh. Really think about that thing. And observe the physical sensations that come up. Sometimes we ask participants to point to where they're feeling these things. You don't have to do that, but just in your own way, just observe how there are different physical sensations that happen. There are different messages that you're receiving. Hello, unconscious me. Last one, we're going to cleanse the palate again. Deep breath in, all the way in. All the way up, 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 up. Hold with full lungs. And smile and let it go. Nice. Deep breath in, all the way in. Hold and smile. And let it go with a sound. Relaxing it on the way out. Last one. We're going to end with maybe a nice positive one. I want you to think of something that makes you feel love. Maybe it's someone, maybe it's a pet. Whatever it is, bring that one thing to mind and observe the physical sensations that accompany that thought. We are observing the messaging that is always there. We are becoming aware of it. Hello, unconscious me. Maybe just enjoy this feeling, this messaging just for a little while. All right, let's cleanse the palate one last time. Deep breath in, all the way in. Smile at the top. All right. And let it go nice and slow with the sound, just relaxing it out. Nice, nice, nice. Deep breath in, all the way in. Hold. Smile. And let it go, just clearing your mind. Bringing your awareness back into yourself again. Observing how the way that we feel changes based off of unconscious processes, unconscious signals. And you can open up your eyes when you're ready. Thank you so much, Ryan. And what we just did there, we did sort of an artificial version of what happens in everyday life, right? We purposefully brought these things up so we could feel those associated emotions. Those are messengers. And those emotions are always shaping how we look at the world, how we look at ourselves. What if we could interface with this aspect of ourselves? Now, in breathwork, you're going to hear a lot of things, and we agree with a lot of other breathwork schools. There are techniques to do in the moment. Okay, I feel a certain way, I'm going to breathe a certain way. There are techniques that we can do to have deep, profound insights. And that's a great question. How do you feel? Yeah, how do you feel after the awareness exercise? Thank you, Ryan. Let us know in the chat. But just to give you an idea of the reason why we do this is to give you an idea of these are the things that we're working with as human beings all the time. What if we can learn how to form a better relationship with this part of ourselves so that we're not, first of all, emotions can be kind of scary. They're not, oh, I don't always know what it is I'm feeling. At least in this case, I knew, okay, I'm thinking of something that makes me angry. I'm thinking of something that makes me feel this. We don't always have that with our emotions. And the unconscious is always trying to push us to do something to help us, to push us to be in what it believes, whether it's right or wrong, is good for us from a place of love, which is great. But that same voice can make it seem as though even in regular good, everything should be good, but why do I feel like it's not good? How can I teach that part of myself not to see the world as such a scary place? How can I show that part of myself that loves me very much, that we're capable of a lot more than what we give ourselves credit for? And how can I work with that part of myself, even though I know that it's just looking out for me, it's just trying to do the best for me? Is it control? Well, you can try that. You can try gritting your teeth and white knuckling it, or you can try to communicate with this part of yourself, form a better relationship. So what we just did was called the Advanced Awareness Exercise. It is in my book, The Language of Breath. It's in our online course as a guided session. It's something that it's a foundational element of the language of breath. But what I'd like to do with you guys now, we're going to go into a breathing session. This is just a really easy breathing session. I actually have a metronome, which is nowhere close to as nice of a background music as Ryan. I apologize for the crudeness of this metronome, but it's just because it's a very simple process. We're not going to do huff and puffs and things. We do a lot of different styles in the language of breath. We work with CO2. We work with heart rate variability. We work with deep sessions, altered state of consciousness. We do a lot of things, but always within this framework of how is it affecting this relationship. But what I'd like to do is guide you through a very simple breathing session that is working with this felt sense, because everything we do in the language of breath is working with an awareness that the way that we feel is generally there's a message there, right? Now, you can sit here and try to decipher the tea leaves and say, well, the reason why I feel this way, yeah, good luck with that too. You're going to feel so many things. It's a sort of a fool's errand to try to figure it all out. What we're really interested in is being able to feel okay with the way we feel so that we can go about the life that we want to live. And oftentimes for our clients, it means they're not doing breath work all day because they've learned how to make this team work, and you can rely on that team. So we're just going to do a really short, about a 5-minute session. And this is just very simple breath work, but we're going to be using your interoceptive awareness. So I'm going to have a metronome, and actually I'll just go ahead and play this metronome now. And if you want to start syncing up your breathing to this, you can. This is just balanced breathing, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. We do all kinds of different kinds of breath in the language of breath. This is just one thing that we're going to be doing tonight. But what I'd like you to try to do, close your eyes, and I'm going to start the tone. You can hear there's a tone for breathing in, and there's a tone for breathing out. And You can choose whichever tone you would like. You're going to breathe in for 5, out for 5. Close your eyes. And what we're going to do is a very simple exercise of moving our awareness and just observing how this changes our state. Okay, this is one of the many different things that we do in Language of Breath. So what we're going to do is on your inhale, we're going to bring our awareness from our feet to our head, nice and slow, so that by the time you take the exhale, your awareness is in your head. And when you take the exhale, what we're going to do is we're just going to imagine that you have a smokestack on the top of your head, and your awareness is going to come pushing out the top. Okay? So you're pulling your awareness from your feet to your head. And then on your exhale, you're pushing your awareness out through the top. Very simple. In and out, 5 in, 5 out. Pulling your awareness up from your feet to your head. Pushing your awareness out as if you have maybe a smokestack on the top where you're just letting it all out. Breathing it in, pulling it up, breathing out, pushing out the top. And if this is difficult, that's okay. We are using a sense that is often overlooked, and it's very easily atrophied in most people, that sense of internal awareness. And as a result, we often have a hard time interfacing with this unconscious part of ourselves until it's just screaming at us. But how does it feel? Pulling that awareness up nice and slow, pushing it out. And I'll shut up for just a minute while we practice. You're doing great. There's no magic to this. We are simply working with the place where our physiology and our psychology intersect. We're working with the fundamental truth that our psychology and our physiology are two sides to the same coin. We are communicating in a very small way safety into this relationship that is you. We've got just one more minute actually in this very short practice. And again, this is just a snapshot. This is just to dip your toes into what we're about as the language of breath. Just feel that, experience that, pulling it up, pushing it out. And in many ways that we discuss further in the book, in the course, in our trainings, you're communicating to a part of you that loves you very much, that we are safe, we're okay, we can trust each other. All right. You can slowly come back into normal breathing. But take a moment before you open your eyes to scan yourself from head to toe, just to check in with how you feel. And if you'd like to share how you feel now in the chat, you can. We'd love to find out. We'd love to get your input. And as we're doing this, as you're sharing, I just want to conclude by saying that the whole reason why we got together tonight, the biggest thing that we wanted to share, Wes is feeling relaxed. That's beautiful. What we really wanted to share is there's a lot of voices in the world of breath work, and there's a lot of good voices there. In the language of breath, what really sets us apart is how the language of breath is really, we're looking at more than just breathing techniques. We're looking at more than, I just want to control. We're working with foundational principles that really we should have all learned as kids. But, well, thank you so much for being here, Nancy. We should have learned these things as kids. I wish I would have learned it much younger. That we are constantly receiving messages from the unconscious. And it's not, boogeyman outside, right? I often talk about, I like drinking coffee. I'm an American, we like coffee. So fine, hey. But when I have that cup of coffee in the morning and I look forward to maybe that little kick I get, I know where it's coming from, right? I know that's what that is. Most of us go around in this world and we feel that same energy, which is an unconscious you saying, hey, Jesse, here's a bunch of energy. And I'm like, in a boardroom or, I'm in a place where I can't run, jump, fight, all those things, right? That's how we experience life. And most of us don't even know where this energy is coming from or why it's there. And that's scary. So much of what we do is we work to educate and we work to become more comfortable with the way we feel, whether it's with first responders or whether it's with athletes or whomever it is. Like with athletes, just for instance, I often kid my athletic clients, I can make you run the fastest you've ever ran if I make you feel like I'm going to kill you, right? If I point a gun at you, yes, you are going to run as fast as you possibly can. Or, it's going to wear off because eventually you're going to realize I'm not going to shoot you. Or I can make you feel as safe. Make you feel safe enough on an unconscious level to push yourself further than you could push yourself otherwise, right? It's about building safety in that relationship that is you. It's about building trust within that relationship and a positive communication back and forth. And here's the thing, guys. You will always be that relationship, whether you like it or not. That's what the human organism is. We are a relationship between conscious and unconscious processes. And whether we want to or not, we're always interfacing with that with every breath that we take. And so tonight, I want to thank everybody for coming out. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. I see some questions here already, and I'm happy to answer those here in just a second. We are going to be sending out an email with further information if you want to get further involved, if you want to learn more. It also will have the recording of tonight if you want to do these practices. Just what we covered today is enough to really help a person to get a better relationship with themselves. But the rabbit hole goes very deep. We are very proud of our philosophy of breath work, which can be applied to all styles of breath. So we're very happy with that. Hopefully some of you guys got a beanie. I hope so. The beanies are really cool. Actually, do I have mine? Where did I put mine? I don't know. I'll have to grab it later. But let's take a look at some of these questions, and feel free to toss questions in there. Let's see here. I'm just checking to see what we have here in the chat, and see here we've got. Okay, here we go. So let's see. Marvin says, how much visualization do y'all use in the language of breath? So when it comes to visualization, yeah, one of the things. So there's it kind of depends on how you define that. So when it comes to visualization, ultimately a lot of what we're doing is we are working with felt sense. So for instance, some of our exercises help a person to develop a more fine-tuned, sharpened felt sense. So we often will ask a person, describe exactly what you feel. Is there can you describe it with, is there a shape to it? Is there a texture to it? And if you want to just right now, just, take two fingers and put a little bit of pressure on your shoulder or any place you like, and just try to just put it into words. How exactly does this feel? And so really putting yourself into these places, it really is incredible just how you can start to really learn the fine tunings of how I actually feel. And here's the beauty behind it. The more you get in touch with this, and this is where much of our training gets into, which is we often have feeling how we actually feel is often so scary that we don't even let ourselves know that we're not doing it. It takes a lot to allow yourself to feel how you actually feel, and that's a beautiful thing that we are so happy and so that we can help people with. Yeah, okay. So Marvin, you have some clients with okay. Yeah, when it comes to having no mind's eye, right? And that's the thing where it's like, until you meet and have clients like that or friends like that, it's like, what? How is that even a thing? The beautiful thing about language of breath is that your sense of interoception is a part of your unconscious and conscious neck or axis, and so they don't actually have to visualize like for instance, the visualization we do. Okay, so again, it depends on how you define it, right? So you might say, hey, visualize a beautiful spring day and you're out in the field and there's a unicorn or whatever, right? Some people just can't do that, and that's okay because we're not doing those kinds of visualizations necessarily. Now, occasionally we'll say, visualize the you that you would like to be, right? Visualize, we might say, think about, for instance, for those who have a difficult mind's eye issue, right? We might say, okay, so what I want you to do is think about the father that you like to be. Depends on what the client is, depends on what the session is, but okay, think about the goal that you're shooting for, right? And so maybe we will take them through a visualization program, but this isn't like, it's not something that's integral. So for a client like that, it's no problem because we just go to felt sense. And so with the felt sense, I mean, everyone has that felt sense. And so for many, now I will say, for some people, it's very difficult to drop into that. And so we have exercises that help a person get there. But yeah, that's a great question. You can use visualizations when it comes to language of breath, like what we were just doing. Like think of something that makes you feel angry, something that makes you feel happy. So for many people, they were visualizing maybe the person that they love, right? They're visualizing their pet, or they're visualizing something that happened that made them feel angry. Now, you don't necessarily have to visualize it. You can think about it in other ways, right? So there are other ways to think about something that makes you feel angry. And the beauty is you can have that felt sense either way. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for that question. That's a really unique question. I appreciate that a bunch. And so when we use the language of breath, this is something we're using with multiple audiences. And the beauty is that unlike like for instance, there's a lot of schools of breath work that are amazing, and we're not here to like bash, but we don't have a specific, you have to do step A, step B, step C. We have foundational principles. We do have templates and things like that, that we say, okay, in many cases, this is a very good progression, but we really are able to meet ourselves where we are and use felt sense, use the ability to feel how the unconscious is speaking to us. And we have objective ways of measuring it as well. So even for people who have a difficult time, for instance, noticing how those sensations at first. Well, okay. Well, guess what? Can you take your pulse? Okay, that's a great start. There's an objective way. We have other measurements that can give us some insight as to the state that we're in, and we can start to work out where the unconscious, some of the messaging that's coming from it as well there too. There's a lot of complexity to it, but the basics are in that relationship between the conscious and the unconscious. So thank you, everyone. Good to see. I see some familiar faces. I see new faces. It's good to see all of you here. If you have questions, you can always reach out to us at languageofbreathcollective.com. If you'd like to work with a Language of Breath breath worker on one-on-one, you can go to languageofbreathcollective.com and you can take a look at our roster. We have just a really impressive group of people from all over the world. We span multiple continents and time zones, and even some different languages as well. So we're excited to be bringing our philosophy of breathwork to the world. You're going to be getting an email, and it will have some further information. If you have any questions about anything we talked about, or you're like, hey, you know what? If you're like me, and as soon as the thing is over, you think of the question, you can also reply to that, and one of either myself or Ryan or somebody in the faculty will get back to you. All right, guys, thank you so much. It is great to have you, and we'll be available if you ever have any questions. Have a great night. Bye-bye.